They left for what I thought was a family trip, my fiancé and my sister, promising to be back soon. They didn't know I would spend that weekend uncovering their perfect lie and deciding to burn their whole world down. The scent I miss the most is the coffee. Not just any coffee, but the specific nutty aroma of the dark roast Liam insisted we buy, brewed in the French press he gave me for our second anniversary. That smell, mingled with the faint, sweet perfume of the jasmine I planted by the kitchen window, was the smell of my life. It was the smell of waking up next to the man I was going to marry in the house we'd poured our hearts and savings into. It was the smell of a future so bright and certain I could practically reach out and touch it. Now, the only thing I smell is the sterile chemical lemon scent of the cleaning products the new owners used after I moved out. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Before the lemon-scented emptiness, there was the coffee, the jasmine, and the two people I loved most in the world, my fiancé, Liam, and my sister, Chloe. Liam and I were that couple. The one our friends jokingly hated but secretly envied. We finished each other's sentences, we had a shared calendar that was a thing of color-coded beauty, and we communicated, or so I thought. We'd been together for 5 years, engaged for 1. We bought our little 2-bedroom bungalow a year ago, a fixer-upper that we'd been slowly transforming into our forever home. Every weekend was a project. I'd be on my hands and knees painting skirting boards, while Liam would be in the garden, wrestling with a stubborn tree root or meticulously laying paving stones for our future patio. Our life was a beautiful, collaborative construction project, and I was the proudest architect you'd ever meet. And then there was Chloe, my younger sister, my built-in best friend. She was the whirlwind to my calm, the chaos to my order. Where I planned, she improvised. She was the one who convinced me to talk to Liam in that crowded bar 5 years ago. She was my maid of honor, my emergency contact, my other half. When Liam and I bought the house, she was over so often she practically lived there. She and Liam had a fantastic relationship. They'd team up to tease me, share inside jokes I wasn't privy to, and gang up on me during board game nights. I saw it as a blessing. My two favorite people, getting along like a house on fire. It never once occurred to me that our house was the one that would actually burn. The idea of the family trip came up about a month ago. Chloe called me, her voice full of that manufactured cheerfulness she uses when she's trying to sell a bad idea. "Sar," she'd said, "Mom and Dad are so stressed. Dad's retirement isn't sitting well with him, and Mom's just tired." I was thinking, what if Liam and I took them away for a long weekend? Just the 4 of us. A cabin up in the mountains, no cell service, just board games and hiking. A real reset. I felt a little pang of disappointment. I loved the mountains, and I adored my parents. "Oh, that's so sweet of you, Chloe. Why don't I come too? We can all go." There was a slight pause on the other end of the line. "Well, that's the thing. I kind of wanted it to be, just us kids with them, like old times. Plus," her voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper, "you know how Mom gets when there are too many people. She fusses, and you've got that huge project deadline coming up. Liam mentioned you were swamped. This way, you get a quiet house to yourself to work, and we get to give Mom and Dad our undivided attention. It's a win-win." Later that night, I brought it up with Liam. He was already on board, of course. He sat beside me on the couch, rubbing my back as I scrolled through my work emails. "Babe, she's right," he said, his voice a soothing balm. "You've been working 60-hour weeks. Take the weekend, sleep in, order pizza. I'll handle your sister and your parents. I promise. We'll be back Sunday night, and your parents will be refreshed and happy. Think of it as my pre-husbandly duty." He kissed my forehead, and just like that, my disappointment melted away into a puddle of gratitude. How did I get so lucky? I had a man who not only loved me but loved my family enough to sacrifice his weekend for them. I had a sister who was so thoughtful and selfless. The Friday they were set to leave felt completely normal. I made them all Coffee Liam's dark roast, of course. I packed a bag of my famous chocolate chip cookies for them to take. Chloe was flitting around the house, all nervous energy and excitement, double-checking that she'd packed her hiking boots. Liam wrapped his arms around me from behind as I stood at the sink, pulling me into his chest. "I'm going to miss this," he murmured into my hair. 3 days is going to feel like 3 years. I laughed, leaning back into him. "Don't be so dramatic. You'll have fun. Just make sure my dad doesn't try to challenge you to a wood chopping contest. His back can't take it anymore." "I'll protect him," he promised solemnly, then spun me around and gave me a long, deep kiss that left me breathless. Chloe yelled, "Get a room!" from the hallway, and we all laughed. It was perfect. A perfect, domestic, loving morning. I walked them to the car, Liam's old SUV that was perfect for mountain roads. I hugged Chloe tight. "Have the best time. Tell Mom and Dad I love them." "Will do, sis. Love you," she said, squeezing me back. Then I turned to Liam. He held my face in his hands. "I love you more than anything. You know that, right?" "I know," I whispered. "I love you too. Drive safe." He kissed me one last time, a quick, sweet peck, and then he was in the driver's seat. I stood on our freshly paved driveway, waving as they pulled away, the car loaded with weekend bags and my Tupperware of cookies. I watched until the SUV turned the corner at the end of our street and disappeared. I stood there for another minute, a small, happy smile on my face, before heading back inside to what I thought would be a wonderfully productive and peaceful weekend alone. Friday was a dream. I powered through my work, blasting my own music without anyone complaining, and ordered a giant greasy pizza for dinner, eating it straight out of the box while binge-watching a show Liam hated. Around 8 p.m., I sent a group text to him and Chloe. "Hope you made it safely. Is the cabin as gorgeous as the pictures? Love you guys." I waited for a reply, but nothing came. Not unusual, I told myself. Chloe had said there'd be no service. They were probably deep in a game of Scrabble, phones forgotten. I went to bed feeling content. Saturday morning, I woke up late and made coffee just for one. The house felt big and quiet. I missed him. I tried calling his phone just on the off chance they'd hit a patch of service. It went straight to voicemail. I called Chloe's. Same thing. Okay, they really were off the grid. Good for them. I spent the day gardening, pulling weeds from the flower beds we'd planted together. As the sun began to set, a tiny, gnawing feeling started in the pit of my stomach. It was just a little worry. What if the car broke down? What if one of them got hurt hiking? I pushed it down. I was being ridiculous. They were 4 adults on a short trip. By Sunday morning, the gnawing feeling had grown into a full-blown beast of anxiety. Still no word. They were supposed to be heading home today. I tried calling both of them again, every hour on the hour, straight to voicemail, every single time. The silence in the house was no longer peaceful. It was oppressive. The coffee tasted bitter. By 5 p.m., my rational brain had officially left the building. My imagination was running wild with horrific scenarios, car crashes, mountain lion attacks, all of it. They were due back any time now, I kept telling myself. Any minute, that familiar SUV would pull into the driveway. 9 p.m. came and went, then 10 p.m. I was pacing the length of our living room, my phone clutched in my hand, my thumb raw from scrolling through my call log. Nothing. That's when I finally broke my own rule. I had promised I'd let them have their family time, that I wouldn't fuss. But this was too much. I needed to know they were okay. My hands were trembling as I scrolled through my contacts and found my mom's number. She always picked up no matter what. She'd tell me they were just running late, that they'd lost track of time. She'd tell me I was being silly. The phone rang twice before she answered, her voice sounding breezy and distant. "Sarah, honey, what a surprise. Is everything all right?" A wave of relief washed over me. "Oh, Mom, thank God. I'm so sorry to bother you. I know you're supposed to be relaxing, but I haven't heard from Chloe or Liam all weekend, and I've been starting to lose my mind. I just needed to know they were okay. Are you guys on your way back yet?" There was a long, dead silence on the other end of the line. For a second, I thought the call had dropped. "Mom? Are you there?" Her voice, when it finally came, was laced with a confusion so profound it chilled me to the bone. "Honey, what are you talking about? Your father and I are in Sarasota. We've been here since Thursday. It's our anniversary trip, remember? We sent you that picture of the sunset yesterday." The line went dead in my ear, but I didn't register it. I was still holding the phone to my head, listening to the echo of my mother's words. "Sarasota anniversary trip. We told you weeks ago." The floor seemed to tilt beneath my feet. I stumbled backwards and sank onto the arm of the couch, the phone slipping from my numb fingers and clattering onto the hardwood floor. It couldn't be true. It was a mistake. A crossed wire. A senior moment on my mom's part, maybe. But my mother's mind was as sharp as a tack. And she'd said Chloe helped her pack. My brain felt like a broken computer, trying to process two completely incompatible pieces of information. Liam and Chloe were in a cabin in the mountains with my parents. My parents were in a beach condo in Florida. Both could not be true. And if my parents were in Florida, where were Liam and Chloe? Why would they lie? A lie so elaborate, so specific, involving our whole family. A cold dread, heavy and suffocating, started to creep up my spine. The image of them this morning, Liam's deep kiss, Chloe's tight hug, their shared laughter flashed in my mind, but now it was warped, sinister. It wasn't a loving goodbye. It was a performance. I stood up, my legs shaky. I needed proof that I was the one going crazy, that there was a logical explanation. I scrambled for my laptop, my fingers fumbling on the trackpad. I pulled up my email, searching for Sarasota, and there it was. An email from my dad from 3 weeks ago with the subject line, "Florida Fun." Inside was a link to the condo they'd rented, their flight itinerary, and a note saying, "Don't tell your mother, but I'm planning on taking her to that fancy seafood place she loves for our anniversary dinner." I had seen this. I remembered opening it, smiling, and then getting distracted by a work notification. I had completely forgotten. But Chloe hadn't. Liam hadn't. They knew. They had known all along. The air in the house was suddenly thick, unbreathable. Every object seemed to mock me. The French press on the counter. The framed photo on the mantel of the four of us, me, Liam, Chloe, and my golden retriever, Max, who we'd lost last year, all smiling on a hike. A real hike. A bitter laugh escaped my lips. It sounded like a sob. The lie wasn't just a lie, it was a carefully constructed cage built around me, and I hadn't even seen the bars. My mind raced, grabbing at the most benign possibilities first. Maybe it was a surprise for me? A secret trip to plan something for the wedding? But that made no sense. Why the elaborate deception? Why involve my parents in the lie? No, the simplest explanation is usually the right one, and the simplest explanation was a knot of pure poison in my gut. My fiancé, my sister, together. The thought was so vile, so fundamentally impossible, that my brain rejected it like a failed organ transplant. Not them, not Liam, my steady, honorable Liam, not Chloe, my blood, my other half. But the evidence was piling up. I ran into our bedroom. I threw open Liam's side of the closet. His worn-out hiking boots were sitting right there, on the floor where they always were. His scruffy weekend duffel bag was still on the top shelf. But his new suitcase, the expensive hard-shell one we'd bought for our planned honeymoon in Greece, was gone. And so were his nice linen shirts, his new swim trunks, and the bottle of ridiculously expensive cologne I'd bought him for his birthday. This was not the wardrobe for a rustic cabin trip. This was a vacation wardrobe. My heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I needed more. I needed something undeniable. With trembling hands, I went back to the laptop and navigated to our joint bank account. We shared everything. We had no secrets. That was our rule. Total transparency, Liam always said. I typed in the password, my breath catching in my throat as the page loaded. I scrolled down through the recent transactions. the mortgage payment, the electric bill, my last grocery run, normal, boring life. And then I saw it. A charge from 3 days ago, Thursday afternoon, an airline, 2 round-trip tickets to Cancun, Mexico. I think I stopped breathing. My vision swam, the numbers and letters on the screen blurring into an incomprehensible mess. Cancun. Not the Blue Ridge Mountains, not a cozy cabin, a beach resort. I scrolled further, a strange, morbid curiosity pulling me down the page, and there it was, a second charge from the same day, a deposit paid to a place called El Sueño Riviera Maya. The description next to the charge read, "Honeymoon Suite, all-inclusive couples package." The words burned into my retinas. Couples package. Honeymoon Suite. He had used our shared money, the money I deposited my paycheck into, the money we were saving for our wedding, for our future, for our children, to take my sister on a romantic getaway. He had booked them a honeymoon suite. The poison in my gut erupted, flooding every inch of my body with a hot, acidic rage. The betrayal was so immense, so profound it was almost biblical. It wasn't just cheating. He had stolen our life. He and Chloe, they had taken the beautiful thing we were building, this house, this future, and they had smashed it to pieces while smiling and kissing my face. I stared at the screen, my reflection a pale, ghostly mask looking back at me. All the love I felt for him, for her, curdled into something dark and heavy. The grief was there, a deep, crushing weight, but the anger was a wildfire, and it was spreading fast. I was about to slam the laptop shut to throw it against the wall when my phone, still lying on the floor, buzzed. The screen lit up with a notification. It wasn't a text from Liam or Chloe. It was an Instagram tag. A girl I knew from college, Ashley, had just posted a new photo. The caption read, "Living my best life in Tulum. You never know who you'll run into." My thumb moved on its own accord, tapping the notification open. The photo was a selfie of Ashley, smiling, a piña colada in her hand. But it wasn't her face I was looking at, it was the background. Over her shoulder, at a poolside bar, was a couple. The man had his back to the camera, but I knew those shoulders, that dark hair, that linen shirt. He had his arm wrapped tightly around the woman next to him. She was laughing, her head thrown back in pure joy. Her face was in perfect profile. It was Chloe. And as I zoomed in, my whole world shattering into a million tiny, irreparable pieces, I saw Liam lean in and press a long, lingering kiss to her smiling lips. For a long moment, I didn't move. I just stared at the screen, zoomed in on the pixelated image of their kiss. It was a tableau of ultimate betrayal, frozen in time by a stranger's piña colada selfie 1,000 miles away. The world narrowed to that single point of contact, his lips on hers. A sound ripped from my throat, a guttural noise of an animal caught in a trap. My hand shot out, sweeping across the mantelpiece. The framed photo of the 4 of us, me, Liam, Chloe, Max, went flying, the glass shattering against the opposite wall with a sickening crash. The sound broke the spell. The world came rushing back in, and with it, a pain so sharp and blinding it buckled my knees. I slid down the wall to the floor, surrounded by the glittering shards of a life that was no longer real. The next few hours were a blur of ugly, jagged emotions. I paced the house, our house, room by room, touching the things we had chosen together. The plush navy blue couch we'd spent weeks searching for, the ridiculous oversized reading lamp he insisted he needed. In the kitchen, I opened the cupboard and saw the matching his and hers mugs Chloe had given us for our engagement. I took them both and smashed them in the sink, the ceramic exploding into dust and fragments. Every corner held a memory, and every memory was now tainted. A scene from a horror movie where I was the only one who didn't know the killer was already inside. I found myself in our bedroom, standing in front of the full-length mirror we'd hung on the closet door. I didn't recognize the woman staring back at me. Her face was pale and blotchy, her eyes wild with a mixture of grief and a terrifying, unfamiliar rage. This wasn't me. I was Sarah, the planner, the calm one, the one who made lists and mediated arguments. I didn't scream, I didn't break things. But the woman in the mirror looked like she could burn the whole world down, and our little bungalow would be the kindling. He had used our honeymoon fund. He had taken my sister to a honeymoon suite. The sheer audacity of it, the monumental disrespect, was what finally snuffed out the last embers of my sorrow and ignited a cold, hard fury in its place. I slept for maybe an hour, a fitful, nightmare-filled doze on the couch. When I woke, the sun was just beginning to streak the sky with pale pink and orange. A new day. For them, it would be another day of sunshine and cocktails and secret stolen touches. For me, it was the first day of the rest of my life, and I would not spend it as a victim. I sat up, the chill of the house seeping into my bones, and a single crystalline thought formed in my mind. He loved this house. He loved it more than he loved me. He called it our foundation, our legacy. He poured his sweat and blood into the garden, into the very walls, and my name was on the deed, right next to his. I picked up my phone, my fingers steady now. I didn't call my parents. I couldn't bear to hear their voices, to break their hearts with the news of what their perfect daughters and future son-in-law had done. I called the one person I knew would understand the need for scorched earth tactics. I called Maya. Maya and I had been friends since law school. While I had gone into corporate contract law, she'd become a divorce lawyer, a shark in a designer suit with a reputation for leaving her clients' ex-spouses with nothing but the lint in their pockets. She answered on the second ring, her voice already sharp and alert. "Sarah, it's 6 a.m. This better be a crisis." "It is," I said, my own voice sounding hollow and strange. And then I told her everything. The family trip, the lies, the phone call to my mom, the bank statement, the honeymoon suite in Cancun, the Instagram photo. I didn't cry. I laid out the facts like I was presenting a case, each word a cold, hard stone of evidence. There was silence on the line when I finished. Not a shocked silence, but a thinking one. "Okay," she finally said, her voice dropping into a low, dangerous register I knew well. "First, I'm coming over with coffee and a sledgehammer. Second, we're not crying, Sarah. We're getting even. Tell me about the house. How is the title held?" "Joint tenants with right of survivorship," I said automatically. "Damn," she hissed. "So you can't sell it without his signature. What about bank accounts?" "Joint. He drained a significant chunk for this trip." "Of course he did," she muttered. "Okay, think. Is there anything, any document at all that he signed giving you any kind of authority over his affairs?" My mind flashed back a year and a half. Liam had taken a 2-week work trip to Singapore. He'd been a nervous wreck about leaving, worried something might happen with the house while he was gone. "The boiler is ancient, babe," he'd said. "What if it explodes and you need to access my personal funds for a repair? I don't want you to be stuck." And so we'd gone to a notary. He'd signed a durable power of attorney, giving me full legal authority to act on his behalf in financial and property matters. It was supposed to be a testament to his trust in me, an act of love and partnership. I'd filed it away and completely forgotten about it, until now. "Maya," I said, my voice trembling with a sudden electrifying surge of power. "I have his power of attorney." The line went silent again, and then I heard her let out a low whistle. "Oh, you beautiful, magnificent bastard," she whispered. "Sarah, you can do whatever you want. You can liquidate everything. You can sell his car. You can sell the damn house from under him." The plan bloomed in my mind, fully formed and terrifyingly perfect. "That's exactly what I'm going to do," I said. By 9 o'clock, Maya was sitting at my kitchen table, a laptop open, a thermos of black coffee between us. She'd already drawn up the paperwork and made a few calls. "I've got you the top realtor in the district," she said, pointing her pen at me. "Brenda Vance, she's a piranha. She specializes in fast, over-asking price sales. She can be here in an hour." "An hour," I repeated, the words feeling like a death sentence and a declaration of independence all at once. Booker. Brenda Vance arrived exactly 59 minutes later. She was a whirlwind of energy in a crisp white pantsuit, her eyes scanning every inch of our home with a calculating glint. She didn't ask about the shattered picture frame or the broken mugs in the sink. She just walked through the house, nodding. Great bones. Staged right. We can have offers in by the end of the week. We list it today. We just need to get the sign on the lawn. As she spoke, her assistant was already hammering a post into the perfectly manicured lawn Liam had spent an entire month cultivating. The thud of the hammer echoed through the quiet street, each blow a nail in the coffin of my old life. Brenda handed me a contract and Maya looked it over, nodding her approval. I picked up the pen, my hand not shaking in the slightest, and signed my name. Then, using the power of attorney, I signed his. It was done. I was standing at the living room window, watching the realtor's assistant hang the bright red "For Sale" sign, when my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, expecting it to be Maya with an update. But it wasn't. It was a text from Liam, my first communication from him in 3 days. My stomach twisted. It was a picture of a pristine white sand beach and 2 sets of footprints leading down to turquoise water. Below it, a message. "Morning, my love. Thinking of you. Can't wait to be home. Miss you and our perfect life more than words can say." I stared at the message, at the picture of the footprints in the sand. His and hers, his and my sister's. Thinking of you, our perfect life. The audacity was a physical blow, knocking the wind out of me. He was lying on a beach with Chloe, probably tangled up in the sheets of their honeymoon suite, and sending me a casual, loving text as if he were just a few hours away at a mountain cabin. He wasn't just a cheater, he was a sociopath. He felt nothing. No guilt, no remorse, just a smug confidence that he could have it all his doting fiancé at home and his bit on the side, who just happened to be her sister. The rage came back, cold and sharp this time, honing my resolve to a razor's edge. I didn't reply. I simply blocked his number. Then, for good measure, I blocked Chloe's too. Let them enjoy their bubble of blissful ignorance for a little while longer. The pop, when it came, was going to be spectacular. Brenda Vance was true to her word. By noon, a photographer was in the house, his flash popping as he captured the life I'd built in neat, marketable squares. Maya had coached me. "Depersonalize," she'd ordered. "Take down every picture, hide every knick-knack. You're not selling a home, you're selling a property. Erase yourself from it." So I did. I moved through the rooms like a ghost, packing my life into cardboard boxes. I took down the framed concert tickets from our first date, the silly caricature we'd had drawn on the boardwalk, the photos of us laughing with friends. Each one was a small death. I packed my clothes, my books, my toiletries. I left all of his things exactly where they were. His clothes hanging in the closet, his toothbrush in the holder next to the empty space where mine had been, his favorite ratty armchair in the living room. Let the new owners deal with the ghost of him. I wanted nothing. The first showing was scheduled for that very evening. Brenda believed in shock and awe. "We'll get the buzz going immediately," she'd said, her eyes gleaming. "Listed on a Sunday, have the first open house before anyone else has even posted their 'coming soon' signs." As I packed the last of my essential belongings into my car, a stream of other cars began pulling up to the curb. Strangers, couples holding hands, families with young kids, all of them walking up the path Liam had laid, peering in the windows of the home we had chosen. They were looking at my future, a future I now had to sell to the highest bidder. I got in my car and drove away without a backward glance, the red "For Sale" sign shrinking in my rearview mirror. I stayed at Maya's, sleeping on her ridiculously expensive but surprisingly comfortable sofa. For the next 3 days, I operated on autopilot, fueled by coffee and Maya's endless supply of righteous indignation. My phone blew up with calls from Brenda. "We have an offer," she said on Monday morning. "10,000 over asking, but they want a long closing." I told her to reject it. By Monday evening, she called again. 3 more offers. One is 15 over, all cash. "Tell them 20, Maya mouthed at me from across the room, holding up a glass of wine. "We'll consider 20,000 over asking," I told Brenda, my voice firm. The call came Tuesday afternoon. "They took it," Brenda said, sounding genuinely impressed. "All cash, 25,000 over asking, and they'll waive the inspection to close in 2 weeks. Sarah, this is a unicorn offer. You need to take it." An all-cash offer. No bank approvals, no contingencies. A clean, brutally fast break. "I'll take it," I said, a wave of dizzying relief and terror washing over me. "Send me the paperwork." Maya handled the rest. She had the purchase and sale agreement in front of me within the hour. I sat at her dining table, the same place I'd signed the listing agreement, and once again I signed my name, and then I signed Liam's. I was selling our dream, our foundation, our legacy, using the very tool he had given me as a symbol of his trust. The irony was so thick I could choke on it. Wednesday morning, I woke up to a barrage of texts on my newly unblocked phone. They were from my mom. "Sarah, call me now. Chloe just called from a hotel phone in Mexico City. Something is wrong." My blood ran cold. My mom continued. She was crying, said their wallets and passports were stolen. They're stranded. Liam is trying to sort it out with the embassy. She sounded terrified. "Please call her back on this number." So their fantasy vacation had hit a snag. A part of me, the old Sarah, felt a flicker of concern, but the new Sarah, the one forged in betrayal and rage, felt a grim, chilling satisfaction. Good. Let them be terrified. Let them be stranded. It was a taste of the chaos they had unleashed on my life. I ignored my mother's texts. The closing was set for the following Friday, just 12 days after I'd signed the listing. It was unheard of. In those 12 days, I became a machine. I hired movers to take my boxes to a storage unit. I arranged for a cleaning service to do a deep clean of the house after I was gone. I worked with Maya to set up a new personal bank account, and she drafted a document to immediately transfer every cent from the sale into it the moment the deal was funded. The joint account, the one Liam had been using, would be left with a balance of 0. The day before the closing, I went back to the house. One last time. It was empty of me, sterile and staged. It felt like a stranger's house already. I walked into the bedroom and opened Liam's closet. I looked at his rows of shirts, his neat collection of shoes. Then I went to the garage. I found the emergency go bag he'd meticulously packed for us in case of an earthquake, water bottles, protein bars, a first aid kit, a hand crank radio. I unzipped it and took everything out. Then I went back to the closet and filled the bag with his things. Not the nice things. I packed his old threadbare t-shirts, his mismatched socks, the worn-out jeans he used for yard work, and the ridiculously ugly Christmas sweater my grandmother had knit for him 3 years ago. I zipped it up and left it in the middle of the empty living room floor. That was all he was getting. The closing itself was an out-of-body experience. I sat in a soulless conference room, signing my name over and over again on a mountain of documents. The buyers, a sweet-looking young couple, were practically glowing with excitement. "We just love what you've done with the garden," the woman said to me, her eyes shining. "It's our dream home." "I'm glad," I said, my voice even. "I hope you'll be very happy here." As soon as the wire transfer was confirmed, Maya and I walked out into the bright afternoon sun. It was over. I was homeless. My life was in boxes, but I was free. And I was, thanks to the insane housing market, significantly richer. We went out for the most expensive lunch I'd ever had, toasting with champagne. That evening, I was back on Maya's couch, scrolling through flights, when my phone rang. It was an unknown number with a strange country code. I hesitated, then answered, putting it on speaker. "Sarah? Oh my God, Sarah, is that you?" It was Chloe's voice, thin and reedy with panic. "Chloe," I said, my voice flat. "Sarah, thank God. We've been trying to reach you for days. Your phone just kept going straight to voicemail. Listen, something terrible happened. We got robbed. They took everything. We're stuck in Mexico City. We've been at the embassy for 2 days. It's a nightmare. Liam is on the phone with his dad trying to get money wired, but we need help. We need you to go to the house." Her voice cracked with a sob. "Can you go to the house and get the emergency cash Liam keeps in the safe in his closet? It's behind the bookshelf. The code is our parents' anniversary. We just need to book a flight home. Please, Sarah. We're desperate." I was silent for a moment, listening to her panicked breathing. The emergency cash. The $20,000 he kept for a worst-case scenario. I had forgotten all about it. A slow, cruel smile spread across my face. "The house?" I said, my voice dripping with false confusion. "Which house would that be, Chloe?" There was a stunned silence on the other end of the line, thick with confusion and the faint, tinny sounds of a crowded room. I could picture her perfectly, huddled in a corner of the embassy, her hair probably a mess, her face tear-streaked and puffy, clinging to a borrowed phone. The image brought me a savage jolt of pleasure. "What do you mean, which house?" Chloe finally stammered, her voice edged with disbelief. "Our house. Your house. Liam's house. The one on Elm Street. Sarah, what's wrong with you? This isn't a time for jokes." "Oh, I'm not joking," I replied, my voice as calm and cool as a frozen lake. I leaned back into Maya's sofa, swirling the last of my champagne in its flute. Maya was watching me, her eyes wide, a predatory grin spreading across her face. "You see, there's a problem with your request. The house on Elm Street, it isn't ours anymore. I sold it." The silence that followed was so absolute I thought the call had dropped. I could hear nothing but my own steady heartbeat in my ears. Then a choked, sputtering sound. What? You sold it? You can't have sold it. That's impossible. You need Liam's signature." "Do I?" I asked, feigning innocence. "That's funny. I don't recall seeing that anywhere on the durable power of attorney he signed over to me last year. You know, the one he gave me because he trusted me completely? It turns out that little document is incredibly useful. It lets me do all sorts of things on his behalf. Sell his assets, empty his bank accounts, sell a house, for instance." A man's voice suddenly cut in, angry and frantic. It was Liam. "Sarah, what the hell is this? What have you done?" "Liam," I said, my voice hardening. "How was Cancun? I hope you and my sister enjoyed your honeymoon suite. You should have sent a postcard." The phone was clearly being passed back and forth. I could hear them whispering furiously to each other. "How did you—" Liam began, his voice dropping. "Oh, please," I scoffed. "You booked the trip on our joint bank account, you moron, and your little poolside makeout session was immortalized on Instagram. You're not criminal masterminds. You're just cliché, horny idiots. Did you really think I wouldn't find out?" "Sarah, baby, listen to me," he said, his tone shifting abruptly to one of strained reason and condescension. It was the voice he used when I was being emotional. "You're obviously upset, and you have every right to be. We can talk about this when I get home. It's not what you think. But right now, we are in a serious situation. Chloe and I are stranded. We have no money, no passports. I need you to put aside whatever is going on with you and help us. This is bigger than us right now." "Bigger than us?" I repeated the words, a laugh bubbling up from my chest, sharp and humorless. "There is no us, Liam. You burned that to the ground the second you booked those tickets. And as for your situation, it sounds like a personal problem. Not my circus, not my monkeys." "The money, Sarah," he shouted, his composure finally cracking. "What about the safe? The $20,000? Did you get it? Did you leave it for the new owners?" I took a slow sip of my champagne, letting him stew in his own panic. "The money," I said thoughtfully. "You'll be happy to know it's perfectly safe. I took it out before the closing. Think of it as a partial reimbursement for the honeymoon fund you stole, and for my therapy bills. and for the emotional damage of having my fiancé run off with my sister. You know, it's funny, $20,000 seems like a lot, but when you really start adding things up, it barely scratches the surface. I heard a strangled cry from Chloe in the background. "My things, Sarah," she wailed. "My laptop was in the spare room, my jewelry box, all my stuff is at the house." "Was at the house?" I corrected her cheerfully. "I imagine it's in a dumpster by now. I told the cleaners to dispose of anything left behind. It was a condition of the sale, you see. The new owners wanted the property delivered vacant. And Chloe," I added, my voice turning to ice, "if you're worried about your precious jewelry, perhaps you should have thought of that before you started screwing my fiancé." "You bitch," Liam snarled. "You vindictive bitch. When I get back, I'm taking you for everything. I'll sue you. You committed fraud." Maya leaned forward and tapped a button on her phone, putting the call on record. "Actually, Liam," she interjected, her voice smooth and professional, "she didn't. Every action she took was perfectly legal under the authority of the durable power of attorney you yourself signed. Any lawsuit you file would be frivolous, and we would countersue for legal fees and malicious prosecution. Also, while I have you, I'll be couriering divorce papers to your parents' address. You can expect to be served the moment you set foot back in the country. My client is seeking a full and complete dissolution of the engagement, and she will be retaining 100% of the assets from the sale of the property. Have a lovely day." She ended the call. The silence in the room was absolute. I looked at her, my eyes wide. "Divorce papers?" "We're not filing for divorce. You were never married," she said with a shrug. "But it sounds scarier, doesn't it? Let him panic." The next few days were quiet. I half expected a flood of calls from my parents, but there was nothing. I figured Liam and Chloe were feeding them a carefully edited version of events, probably painting me as a hysterical, irrational shrew who had overreacted. Let them. The truth had a way of coming out. I focused on my new life. I found a small, chic apartment for rent in a completely different part of the city and paid a year's lease up front in cash. I started the process of furnishing it, choosing every single item for myself, by myself. A sleek, modern sofa instead of the plush monstrosity Liam had loved. A glass dining table instead of a heavy, dark wood one. It was liberating. About a week later, I was unpacking boxes in my new sun-drenched living room when my phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. "We're back. We're at Mom and Dad's. We need to talk." It was from Chloe. I ignored it. An hour later, another one. "Sarah, please. Dad is threatening to disown me. Mom won't stop crying. You've ruined our family." I snorted. I had ruined the family? That was rich. I typed back a simple reply, "No, you ruined the family. Live with it." The final text came late that night, this time from Liam. I went to the house. The new owners called the police. They have security cameras. They think I was trying to break in. I have a restraining order against me now, from my own house. You've destroyed my life. A grim smile touched my lips. I looked around my new apartment, at the boxes waiting to be unpacked, at the blank walls waiting to be filled with my own memories. He was wrong. I hadn't destroyed his life. I had simply taken back mine. I turned my phone off, silencing their desperate, pathetic pleas. The silence was beautiful. It was the sound of a new beginning. I thought I had finally won, that the worst was over. But I had forgotten one thing. Chloe and Liam weren't just cheaters. They were desperate. And desperate people don't just give up. They get creative, and they get much, much nastier. The silence lasted for about a month. It was a blissful, restorative month where I began to stitch the ragged edges of my life back together. I found a therapist, a no-nonsense woman who helped me untangle the knots of grief and rage. I excelled at work, throwing myself into my projects with a renewed focus that got me noticed by the partners. My new apartment started to feel like a home, filled with plants, new art, and the delicious scent of coffee brewed just for me, however I liked it. I started seeing my friends again, the ones I had neglected in the cozy bubble of my relationship with Liam. They rallied around me, their support a warm, protective shield. I was beginning to feel like myself again, or rather, a newer, stronger version of myself. The first crack in my peaceful new world came in the form of an email. It was from my father. The subject line was simply, "Family." My heart sank. I knew this was coming. I had been dodging my parents' calls, sending them brief texts, assuring them I was fine but not ready to talk. I knew they were caught in the middle, their hearts broken for both their daughters. I opened the email with a sense of dread. It was long and rambling, a testament to my father's conflicted emotions. He wrote of his disappointment, his anger at both Chloe and Liam, but also of his deep, unwavering belief in the sanctity of family. He talked about forgiveness, about not letting a mistake. A terrible, terrible mistake, he called it, destroy us all. Then he got to the point. Liam and Chloe are destroyed, Sarah. They lost everything. Liam's father had to wire them money just to get home. He lost his job because of the restraining order incident. His company has a strict conduct policy. Chloe is a shell of herself. They are living in her old bedroom here, and the tension in this house is unbearable. They made a mistake, a life-altering one, but they are still our family. Liam has proposed a solution. He wants to talk. He says he can make this right. Make this right? The arrogance was breathtaking, as if this were a spilled glass of milk that could be wiped up and forgotten. I typed a curt reply, "There is nothing to talk about. My decision is final." But I had underestimated Liam's capacity for manipulation and my father's desperate desire for a happy ending. A few days later, another email arrived. This time, it detailed Liam's proposal. He wasn't asking for the house back. He wasn't even asking for all the money. He was asking for half. He had framed it as a fair and equitable dissolution of shared assets. He'd had a lawyer draft a document, which was attached to the email. He was willing to sign away any future claims on me or the other half of the money if I just agreed to split the proceeds from the sale. He was painting himself as the reasonable one, the penitent sinner seeking only a fair resolution, and me as the vengeful woman holding everything hostage. He was playing my parents like a fiddle, preying on their sense of fairness. I forwarded the email to Maya with the subject line, "You have got to be kidding me." Her reply was instantaneous. "Delete, block, do not engage. We owe them nothing. Let him file a suit. He'll be laughed out of court." So I did. I blocked my father's email address. It felt like severing a limb, but I knew it was necessary. I couldn't allow them to guilt me into financing my ex-fiancé and my sister's new life together. The money was my security, my independence, my fresh start. It was the only tangible thing I had salvaged from the wreckage. That's when things escalated. The emails stopped, but the social media campaign began. It was subtle at first, vague posts from distant relatives about the importance of forgiveness. Then Chloe reactivated her Instagram. She posted a single black and white photo of her and me as children, sitting on a swing set, our arms around each other. The caption read, "There's nothing in this world I wouldn't do to go back to this. Some mistakes break more than just your own heart. I'm so, so sorry." The comment section was a tidal wave of sympathy. "Oh, honey, we all make mistakes. Family is forever. I hope she can find it in her heart to forgive you." They didn't know the context. They didn't know she'd been sunning herself in a honeymoon suite with my fiancé. To the outside world, she was the repentant sister, and I was the cold-hearted one, refusing to forgive some unnamed transgression. Liam's approach was different. He went after my professional reputation. He started leaving reviews on my law firm's public pages, not using his own name, of course, but the details were specific enough. He wrote about a cold, calculating, and unethical lawyer at the firm who had defrauded her own family and stolen a shared home out from under her fiancé. He posted them on Google, on Yelp, on niche legal review sites. Most were taken down after Maya reported them, but the damage was done. The managing partner at my firm called me into his office, a concerned look on his face. He was supportive, but the message was clear: handle your personal drama. The final straw came on a Tuesday. I was leaving my apartment building, heading to work, when I saw him. Liam. He was standing across the street, just watching my building. He looked awful. He'd lost weight, his face was gaunt, and he was wearing a wrinkled shirt and the same yard-work jeans I'd packed for him. He just stood there, staring, a haunted look in his eyes. He didn't approach me. He didn't call out. He just watched. It was terrifying. It felt like a violation, an invasion of my new, safe space. I ducked back into the lobby, my heart pounding, and called an Uber, my hands shaking so badly I could barely type in my office address. I knew then that this wasn't going to stop. They were cornered animals, and they would continue to bite and scratch and claw until they got what they wanted. Ignoring them wasn't working. It was only making them more desperate. That night, I sat in my silent apartment staring at the legal papers Maya had drafted, the ones that would formally sever all ties. But a legal document felt insufficient. It wouldn't stop the harassment. It wouldn't stop the whispers and the lies. It wouldn't stop him from standing outside my home. I needed something more. I needed a final move, a checkmate that would end the game for good. My mind went back to the house, to the years of work we'd put into it, the hours I'd spent poring over paint swatches, the weekends Liam had lost digging in the garden. He had loved that house, but more than that, he had loved the image of himself in that house. The successful man, the provider, the one who built a foundation with his own two hands. His pride was inextricably linked to that property. And there was one project, one final piece of his grand vision that we never got around to finishing. It was his passion project, a state-of-the-art recording studio he wanted to build in the soundproofed basement. He was an amateur musician, and his dream was to have a professional space to write and record. He had spent months researching equipment, drawing up plans, getting quotes. He'd even purchased some of the most expensive items already: a vintage mixing board, a set of high-end microphones, which were still in boxes in the basement when I left. He had planned to start construction this summer. I knew, with absolute certainty, that the new owners had no idea what was down there. Brenda, in her rush to sell, had barely glanced at the unfinished basement, dismissing it as storage space. And I had been so consumed with my own escape that I had completely forgotten about it. The equipment alone was worth a small fortune. An idea began to form in my mind, an idea so audacious and vengeful it made my blood run cold and hot at the same time. It was risky. It was probably illegal. But it felt like the only way to truly burn the last bridge and end this war. I still had one thing that connected me to that house, something I had overlooked in my haste: a spare key. The one I used to keep on my office lanyard. It was still in the bottom of my work bag. The next day, I called in sick to work. I drove to a hardware store and bought a pair of bolt cutters and a heavy-duty padlock. Then I drove to Elm Street. I parked a block away and walked towards my old house, my heart hammering in my chest. It looked different, already lived in by the new family. There was a child's bicycle on the lawn, and colorful chalk drawings decorated the driveway. I felt a pang of sadness, but I pushed it down. I waited, hiding behind a large oak tree until I saw the couple leave in their minivan, presumably taking their child to school. The house was empty. My hands trembled as I walked up the path, my path, and slipped the key into the lock of the side door that led directly to the basement. It turned smoothly. The door clicked open and I slipped inside, closing it silently behind me. The air was cool and smelled of damp concrete and sawdust. And there they were. Stacked against the far wall were the large, unopened boxes of Liam's dreams. The mixing board, the monitors, the microphones, tens of thousands of dollars of his future, sitting right in front of me. I took a deep breath, pulled the bolt cutters from my bag, and got to work. But I wasn't there to steal his equipment. I was there to deliver a message. I systematically, methodically began to destroy it all. I wasn't just severing a tie. I was salting the earth. It was brutal, ugly work. The sound of metal snapping and plastic cracking echoed in the cavernous basement, each crack a punctuation mark in my final, furious monologue. I didn't feel the old Sarah's grief or the victim's pain. I felt a cold, focused power. With the bolt cutters, I snipped through every cable I could find on the mixing board, rendering it a useless, 1,000-pound sculpture of knobs and faders. I took a hammer from Liam's own toolbox, the one he'd used to build our bookshelves, and I methodically smashed the delicate condenser microphones one by one, their sensitive diaphragms shattering with a pathetic pop. I opened the boxes of studio monitors and shattered their cones, the precise, expensive instruments of sound creation reduced to rubble. This wasn't just about the money. This was about destroying the symbol of the future he had planned, a future he had assumed would exist even after his betrayal. It was an annihilation. When I was done, my arms ached and my knuckles were raw. The basement looked like a bomb had gone off in an electronics store. I surveyed the wreckage, my breath coming in ragged gasps. The air was thick with the dust of my destruction. This was the point of no return. This was the act from which there could be no forgiveness, no reconciliation, no fair and equitable solution. This was the end. Before I left, I took out a Sharpie from my bag. On the largest, flattest piece of the ruined mixing board, I wrote a simple message in big block letters. Consider us even. I let myself out the side door, padlocking it from the outside and snapping the heavy-duty lock shut. I took the key, my key, and threw it into a storm drain 2 blocks away. As I drove back to my new life, I didn't feel guilty. I felt quiet. The rage had finally burned itself out, leaving behind a strange, calm emptiness. The war was over because I had deployed the nuclear option. The fallout was almost immediate. 2 days later, my phone rang. It was my mother. I had unblocked her number, knowing this call was inevitable. I answered. She was sobbing, her words a torrent of grief and disbelief. "Sarah, what have you done? Liam called us. He somehow found out about the studio equipment. He went to the house. He spoke to the new owners. They went into the basement. Sarah, they called the police again. They think he did it. He's a suspect in a felony vandalism case, his own property." "It wasn't his property anymore, Mom," I said, my voice devoid of emotion. "It was abandoned property in a house he no longer owned, and I have no idea what you're talking about." "Don't lie to me," she shrieked, a sound I hadn't heard from her since I was a teenager. "He knows it was you. The message, Sarah. He said you left a message. You are destroying this family. You are destroying your sister. Chloe is having a breakdown. She had to be sedated. Do you hear me? You put your sister in the hospital?" The news about Chloe hit me with an unexpected jolt. Sedated? In a hospital? The image was jarring, but the empathy that should have followed was absent. It was as if that part of me had been cauterized. "Chloe made her choices," I said calmly. "So did Liam. So did I. We all have to live with them now." I ended the call before she could reply, my hand steady. That was the last time I spoke to my mother. My father sent one final text. "I don't know who you are anymore." I didn't reply. The silence from them was now a wall of ice, and I wasn't sure if it would ever thaw. But in a way, I was grateful. Their attempts to mediate, their pleas for forgiveness, had felt like ropes pulling me back towards a life I needed to escape. Now, the ropes were cut. A week later, I received a certified letter at my office. It was from Liam's new lawyer. It was a cease and desist, filled with blustering threats of lawsuits for the money, for damages to the equipment, for defamation, for emotional distress. It was a laundry list of his grievances, a final, desperate attempt to intimidate me. I passed it to Maya. She laughed. "This is junk," she said, tossing it in the bin. "He has no legal standing. The equipment was abandoned property. He can't prove you did it, and even if he could, he'd have to explain what he was doing trying to access a house he's been legally barred from. He's got nothing. And she was right. The threats were empty. The lawsuits never materialized. The angry reviews stopped. The social media campaign went silent. My parents didn't reach out again. It was over. The silence I had craved was finally real. It was a heavy, profound silence, filled with loss and the ghosts of what might have been, but it was mine. Years passed, 4 of them. I rose through the ranks at my firm, making partner. I sold my chic apartment and bought a small townhouse with a little garden in the back, where I planted jasmine. I traveled. I dated, cautiously at first, then with a more open heart. I even fell in love again with a kind, gentle man named David, who taught architectural history and had the warmest laugh I'd ever heard. He knew my story, all of it, and he wasn't scared away by my jagged edges. He helped smooth them over. I never spoke to Chloe or Liam again. I heard snippets of their life through the grapevine of distant relatives who hadn't yet been excommunicated. They had stayed together, living in a cramped apartment an hour outside the city. Liam, unable to find work in his old field, was managing a big-box electronics store, a cruel irony that I savored for a moment before letting it go. Chloe was working as a receptionist. They were struggling. My parents, I heard, had a strained but civil relationship with them, the kind reserved for holiday dinners and obligatory phone calls. They had never fully recovered from the schism. I was happy, truly deeply happy in a way I hadn't known was possible. The past had become a scar, still visible but no longer tender to the touch. It was a part of my story, but it didn't define me. Then, last week, I was leaving a downtown restaurant with David, our hands linked, laughing about something silly when I saw her. It was Chloe. She was standing on the corner, waiting for the light to change. She looked older. The vibrant, chaotic energy that had always surrounded her was gone, replaced by a weary resignation. Her clothes were drab, her hair was pulled back in a severe bun, and there were deep, tired lines around her eyes. She was holding a grocery bag in one hand and her phone in the other. She hadn't seen me. I could have just walked past. I could have let the current of the city carry us in opposite directions, keeping the past buried. But David squeezed my hand, sensing the change in me. "You okay?" he whispered. And in that moment, some long, dormant instinct, some vestige of the girl who once loved her sister more than anyone, took over. I let go of David's hand. "Chloe," I said. My voice sounded strange, like a key turning in a rusty lock. Her head snapped up. Her eyes widened, first in shock, then in a complex swirl of emotions I couldn't begin to decipher. Fear, shame, and a flicker of something that looked like desperate hope. She took a half step towards me. "Sarah," she breathed. And then a car pulled up to the curb beside her. The passenger door opened and Liam leaned across the seat. He looked just as worn down as she did. His face, when he saw me, hardened into a mask of pure, undiluted hatred. "Get in the car, Chloe," he commanded, his voice low and menacing. Chloe hesitated, her eyes darting between me and him. She looked trapped. "Sarah, she started, her voice trembling. "Now," Liam snarled. She flinched, then scurried into the car like a frightened animal. The door slammed shut and the car sped away, leaving me on the sidewalk with the ghost of her unspoken words hanging in the air. David came up behind me, putting a protective arm around my shoulder. "Let's go home," he said softly. But I couldn't move. I was just staring at the empty space where the car had been. It wasn't Liam's hatred that had frozen me to the spot. It was the look in Chloe's eyes. And it was the large, fading purple and yellow bruise that was just visible on her temple, peeking out from beneath her hairline. The image of that bruise was seared into my brain. It was a dark, ugly blotch against her pale skin, a dissonant chord in the symphony of my hard-won peace. All night I lay awake, staring at the ceiling of the beautiful bedroom David and I shared, but seeing only my sister's face. I saw the flinch when Liam snarled at her. I saw the fear that had extinguished the spark in her eyes. The cold, impenetrable wall I had built around my heart began to crack. The vengeful woman who had destroyed a basement studio and the successful lawyer who had built a new life both receded, and all that was left was the girl on the swing set, the one whose first instinct had always been to protect her little sister. David, sensing my turmoil, didn't press. He just held me, a warm, solid presence in the darkness. "Whatever you decide to do," he murmured into my hair, "I'm with you." I knew what I had to do. This wasn't about forgiveness. It wasn't about reconciliation or dredging up the past. The betrayal was still a fact, a scar that would never fully fade. But this was about something more fundamental. You don't have to love someone to save them. The next morning, I called in a personal day. I opened my laptop and, with a grim sense of purpose, I began to dig. It wasn't hard to find them. Their life was a trail of public records and social media breadcrumbs. I found their apartment address, the name of the big box store where Liam worked, the dental clinic where Chloe was a receptionist. I wasn't acting on emotion anymore. I was a lawyer building a case. My first call was to an old friend from law school who now worked in the family law division of the DA's office. I told her a hypothetical story about a friend's sister. I was vague on the details, but specific about the bruise, the fear, the controlling behavior. She gave me the names of two of the best women's shelters in the city and the direct number for a detective who specialized in domestic violence cases. My second step was more difficult. I found a phone number for my parents' next-door neighbor, a kind woman I'd known my whole life. I called her, my heart pounding. I asked her not to tell my parents I had called. I just needed to know if she'd seen Chloe recently, if she had noticed anything amiss. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Oh, Sarah," she said, her tone heavy with a sadness she'd clearly been holding in. "We see them sometimes when they visit your folks. He's always with her. He waits in the car. He has a temper. Your father got into a shouting match with him in the driveway last Christmas. I don't know the details, but your mother hasn't been herself since." The pieces were clicking into place, forming a picture far uglier than I could have imagined. Their struggle wasn't just financial, it was a cage, and Liam held the key. He had lost everything: his home, his career, his self-respect, and he was taking it out on the one person he had left, the person who had helped him lose it all. Armed with this information, I made my move. I didn't call Chloe. I knew Liam monitored her phone. I didn't go to their apartment. I knew that would only escalate the situation. Instead, I went to her workplace, the quiet, sterile dental clinic. I arrived 10 minutes before her lunch break was scheduled to start. I gave the woman at the front desk a note to pass to Chloe. It simply said, "I know. I'm at the coffee shop across the street. Come alone, I can help." I sat in a booth by the window, my hands wrapped around a cup of tea I couldn't drink, and I waited. Every minute that ticked by felt like an hour. I watched the door to the clinic, my stomach in knots. Was she too scared to come? Had he forbidden her from taking a lunch break alone? Then I saw her. She scurried across the street, her head down, her shoulders hunched as if expecting a blow. She slid into the booth opposite me, not meeting my eyes. She looked worse up close. The bruise was more pronounced, and there was a faint, almost healed cut on her lip she'd tried to cover with makeup. "What do you want, Sarah?" she whispered, her voice brittle. "I want to know if you're okay," I said, keeping my own voice soft. A bitter, broken laugh escaped her. "Okay, my life is a complete disaster. I live in a one-bedroom apartment that smells like old takeout. My boyfriend is an unemployed rageaholic. My parents barely speak to me, and my own sister hates my guts. Yeah, I'm just peachy." "This isn't about me hating you, Chloe," I said firmly. "This is about that bruise on your face. This is about him." Her eyes filled with tears, and her entire body began to tremble. "You don't understand," she sobbed, the words tumbling out in a frantic whisper. "It's my fault, all of it. I pushed him. I ruined his life. I ruined your life. I deserve this. He's just angry. He lost so much." "He didn't lose it, Chloe. He threw it away, and you are not responsible for his fists." I slid a piece of paper across the table. On it, I had written the address of the shelter, the name of the intake coordinator who was expecting a call, and the direct line for the detective. "This is a choice," I said. "This is a way out. They can have you in a safe place within the hour. They can help you get a restraining order. You don't have to go back there." She stared at the paper as if it were a lifeline and a death sentence all at once. "I can't," she whispered. "I have nothing. No money, no anything. Where would I go?" "You'll stay with me," I said, the words surprising me as much as they did her. "You can have my spare room for as long as you need." She finally looked up, her eyes wide with a desperate, fragile hope. The wall between us, the one built of betrayal and 4 years of silence, crumbled into dust. She was just my sister, my broken, terrified little sister. What followed was a blur of calculated action. Chloe made a tearful call to the shelter. I called the detective. While Chloe spoke to him, I went to the clinic and quietly informed her boss that she was quitting, effective immediately due to a personal emergency. Then, with a police escort waiting discreetly down the street, we went to her apartment. Liam wasn't there. With shaking hands, Chloe threw her essential belongings, clothes, toiletries, a small box of photos, into 2 suitcases. It took less than 15 minutes to erase her from that life. That night, she slept in my guest room. I lay awake for hours, listening for any sound, but there was only a deep, exhausted silence. The next morning, I found her in the kitchen, staring at the jasmine outside the window. She was wearing an old T-shirt of mine and looked small and lost. "Thank you," she said, her voice thick. "Don't thank me yet," I said. "This is just the beginning." And it was. The weeks that followed were hard. There were lawyers and police reports. Liam, predictably, lost his mind. He bombarded my phone with threats, which I dutifully recorded and passed to the police, strengthening Chloe's case for a permanent restraining order. My parents, when they found out, were a wreck of guilt and relief. My mother called me, weeping. "We didn't know," she cried. "We didn't know how bad it was." "I know," I said, and for the first time in years, I meant it. Chloe slowly began to heal. She started therapy. She got a new job. She started laughing again, a sound I hadn't realized how much I'd missed. Living together was strange. We didn't talk about the betrayal, not yet. It was a sleeping dragon in the room, and we were both too fragile to wake it. We just coexisted. We made dinner. We watched movies. We took small, hesitant steps back towards being sisters. One evening, about 2 months after she'd moved in, we were sitting on my little patio. The jasmine was in bloom, its sweet scent filling the air. "He took the plea deal," she said quietly. "No jail time, but a year of probation and mandatory anger management. I never have to see him again." "Good," I said. We sat in silence for a few minutes, watching the sun set. "Why, Sarah?" she finally asked, her voice trembling. "After everything I did to you, why would you help me?" I looked at her, really looked at her. I didn't see the woman from the Instagram photo. I saw the little girl on the swing set. I saw the scared woman in the coffee shop, and I saw the sister who was slowly, painstakingly, finding her way back to herself. The anger was gone. The hate was gone. All that was left was a deep, quiet sadness for everything we had lost and a fragile hope for what we might rebuild. "Because," I said, and the truth of it settled in my own heart as I spoke the words aloud, "because you're my sister, and somewhere, underneath all the wreckage, that still has to mean something." It wasn't a perfect ending. There was no magic moment of complete forgiveness. Our family was still a fractured thing. But as we sat there, sharing the quiet evening air, it felt like a beginning. The scent of jasmine wasn't just the smell of my new life anymore. It was the smell of a second chance,